Kevin Lomo leaned back in his leather office chair, his gaze fixed on the towering city skyline beyond the glass windows of his corporate headquarters. From this vantage point, he could see the world he had built, Grayson Bites, a burger empire that had expanded to over 1,000 locations worldwide. His name was synonymous with success, innovation, and fairness. But lately, something had been gnawing at him. Despite the company's public image as an inclusive, employee-first business, troubling reports had started to reach his ears. Complaints about mistreatment, managers abusing their authority, and whispers of discrimination in certain locations. At first, they were isolated incidents, 1 or 2 complaints here and there. But as they continued to pile up, Kevin couldn't ignore them. He had built this company from the ground up, flipping burgers in his first store, working side by side with his employees. He believed in fairness, in giving people opportunities regardless of their background. If something had gone wrong, if his values weren't being upheld in the restaurants that bore his name, he needed to find out why. But how? Sending corporate inspectors wouldn't work. Whenever corporate visited a location, people put on their best behavior. If managers were mistreating their employees, they wouldn't dare show it when they knew they were being watched. No, Kevin needed an unfiltered look at what was happening when no one thought the boss was around. Then it hit him. He would go undercover. Not as a supervisor or inspector. Not as a high-ranking official. He would start at the bottom, just another new hire looking for work. The plan was simple. With the help of a trusted team from corporate, Kevin would assume a new identity, Ken Wallace, an average guy looking for an entry-level job. A little makeup to dull his sharp features, a pair of thick-rimmed glasses, and a change in wardrobe transformed him from a billionaire CEO into an everyman. He ditched his tailored suits for a plain hoodie, jeans, and scuffed sneakers. Next, he picked the restaurant. He didn't go for just any Grayson Bites location, he chose one with a reputation. Complaints about toxic management, high employee turnover, and hostile work conditions had surfaced from this particular branch. If something was wrong, this was where he'd find it. With everything in place, Kevin walked out of his office not as a CEO, but as a man searching for the truth. Little did he know, the truth was going to hit him harder than he ever expected. The scent of sizzling beef, toasted buns, and salty fries filled the air as Kevin stepped into the Grayson Bites location, his nerves steady despite the weight of what he was about to do. The restaurant was buzzing with activity. Employees worked behind the counter, flipping burgers, pouring drinks, and calling out orders. Customers filled booths, chatting over their meals, oblivious to the social experiment unfolding in their midst. As Kevin approached the register, a young supervisor with a friendly demeanor smiled and extended his hand. "Hey, you must be Ken, right? I'm Marcus. Welcome to the team, man." Kevin returned the handshake with a nod. "Yeah, first day. Excited to get started." "Good attitude," Marcus said. "We'll get you trained up in no time." For the first hour, everything seemed fine. Employees were friendly, showing him the ropes with patience. He was paired with another new hire, Jason, a fresh-faced college student looking for a summer job. They learned side by side, practicing order taking, grilling techniques, and food prep. Then she walked in. Brenda Wilkes. The moment Brenda, the restaurant's chief manager, entered the building, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations grew quieter. Employees straightened their posture. Even Marcus, who had been laid back and chatty, suddenly looked like he was walking on eggshells. Kevin turned his attention to the woman causing the tension. Brenda was in her early 50s, with sharp features and an expression that seemed permanently unimpressed. Her uniform was pressed to perfection, her hair pulled into a tight bun. Everything about her screamed control. Her eyes scanned the restaurant, landing on Kevin. Instantly, her expression soured. "Who's this?" she demanded, her tone sharp. "Ken Wallace, our new hire," Marcus said. "Just started today." Brenda barely glanced at Kevin before shifting her gaze to Jason. Then, her demeanor changed entirely. Her lips curled into a welcoming smile. "Jason, welcome aboard. You're gonna love it here." Kevin waited for the same greeting. It never came. Instead, Brenda turned to him with narrowed eyes, arms crossed over her chest. "You. Follow me." Marcus shot Kevin a sympathetic glance, but said nothing. Kevin followed Brenda into the kitchen, where she stopped abruptly and turned to face him. "I don't know how you got hired," she said flatly, "but let's get something straight, you work for me now. And I don't do babysitting." Kevin held her gaze, staying silent. "You wanna last here?" she continued. "Then don't ask dumb questions. Don't slack off. Do what I say, when I say it, and maybe, just maybe, you won't be out of here in a week." Her words weren't just strict, they were dripping with something else. An underlying resentment, an unspoken message. She hadn't treated Jason this way. Only him. Kevin didn't react. He had seen this kind of manager before, people who thrived on power, who ruled through fear and intimidation. He had just never expected to find one in his own company. Brenda tossed a greasy rag at him. "Start by scrubbing the grease traps. Let's see if you're worth keeping." Kevin caught the rag and got to work. He wasn't here for special treatment. He wasn't here to argue. He was here for the truth. And he had just found the first piece of it. Kevin crouched near the fryer, scrubbing at the grease trap with a worn-out rag. The strong, acrid smell of burnt oil clung to the air, making his eyes water. It was a task no one enjoyed, grimy, tedious, and usually assigned to the newest employees. But Kevin wasn't assigned this job because he was new. Brenda wanted to humiliate him. He had already noticed the pattern. The moment he stepped into the kitchen, Brenda treated him differently. Jason, the other new hire, was still up front, learning how to take orders. Meanwhile, Kevin had been thrown into the dirtiest jobs available, scraping the grill, taking out overflowing trash bins, and now, cleaning grease traps. He didn't complain. He needed to see how far Brenda would take this. "Hey, Marcus," Kevin called over, keeping his tone casual. "Can I switch to the register soon? Jason's been up there for a while. Might be good if we both got some practice." Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, Brenda's sharp voice cut through the air. "You don't get to demand where you work, newbie," she snapped, striding over. "If I tell you to scrub the floor with a toothbrush, you do it. No questions. No complaints. Understand?" Kevin forced himself to nod, gripping the rag in his hand. "Understood." Brenda leaned down, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "I don't know what kind of place you worked at before, but this isn't some charity job. You don't belong here." There it was. The veiled insult. The suggestion that he, a black man, didn't deserve to be there. Kevin bit back the sharp words forming in his head. He needed her to reveal herself fully before making his move. Instead, he gave a nonchalant shrug and kept scrubbing. Brenda scoffed. Pathetic. As she turned and walked away, Marcus approached, whispering under his breath. "Man, I don't know why she's like that. She's been here for years, and nobody stands up to her. Has anyone ever reported her?" Kevin asked quietly, keeping his movement steady. Marcus hesitated, then sighed. "People have. A few times. But nothing ever happens. She's tight with some higher-ups, so complaints disappear. It's just the way it is." Kevin clenched his jaw. Not anymore. The rest of the shift played out the same way. While Jason was praised for doing the bare minimum, Kevin was ridiculed for the smallest mistakes. If he was even a second too slow on the grill, Brenda was in his face. If he asked a question, she rolled her eyes and made a snide remark about his intelligence. By the end of the night, Kevin had seen enough. But the worst was yet to come. Saturday was always the busiest day at Grayson Bites. From the moment the doors opened, the restaurant was packed, families with kids, teenagers grabbing food after school, workers stopping in for a quick lunch. Kevin was thrown onto the grill station, flipping burgers as fast as he could. The orders were coming in faster than he could keep up, but he was managing. Until he made one mistake. He was assembling a burger when he accidentally put lettuce on a customer's order that didn't need it. It was a small error. One that could have been easily fixed. But Brenda lost it. She marched over, snatching the burger off the counter. "Are you serious?" she shouted, her voice echoing through the kitchen. She turned toward the other employees, waving the burger in the air like it was a crime scene exhibit. "You see this? This is what happens when you hire people who can't follow basic instructions." The kitchen fell silent. Customers in the dining area turned their heads. Employees froze mid-task. Kevin straightened, wiping his hands on his apron. "It's just lettuce, Brenda. I can remake the burger in 30 seconds. But Brenda wasn't done. She took a step closer, her face twisted with rage. "You people are always messing things up. Always needing someone else to clean up after you." Kevin's stomach twisted. There it was. The moment he had been waiting for. A shocked gasp rippled through the kitchen. Marcus and a few other employees exchanged nervous glances. Even Jason, who had been oblivious to most of the tension, looked uncomfortable. Brenda wasn't finished. She jabbed a finger in Kevin's face. "You're lazy, careless, and honestly. You don't belong in a place like this. You'll be lucky if you make it past the week." Kevin took a deep breath. That was enough. He slowly removed his apron, folded it neatly, and placed it on the counter. Then, he looked Brenda dead in the eye. "You know what, Brenda? You're right about one thing. I don't belong here." Brenda smirked, clearly thinking she had one. "Glad you're finally catching on." Kevin took off his name tag and set it down beside the apron. Then he pulled out his wallet and removed his business card. He held it up between two fingers. "My name isn't Ken Wallace," he said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "My name is Kevin Lomo. I own this company." Brenda's smirk disappeared instantly. The color drained from her face, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "Wait, what? No. That's not possible." Kevin pulled his phone from his pocket, unlocking it with a tap. He pulled up the Grayson Bites corporate website and turned the screen toward Brenda. His picture. His name. His title. Her hands trembled. I didn't know," she stammered, stepping back. "Mr. Lomo, I was just trying to." "You were trying to humiliate me," Kevin said, his voice calm but firm. "You were trying to tear me down because you thought you could get away with it." Brenda's head whipped around, searching for support, but no one was on her side. Marcus crossed his arms. Jason looked away. Even Mark, another manager who had previously tolerated her behavior, shook his head. Kevin exhaled sharply. "You're fired, Brenda. Effective immediately." The restaurant erupted in hushed whispers. Brenda's face turned beet red. "You can't." "I can," Kevin interrupted. "And I just did. Pack your things. Get out of my store." Brenda stood frozen for a moment before snatching off her own name tag and throwing it on the floor. Without another word, she stormed out the door, leaving behind a stunned but relieved team. Kevin turned to the employees. "Things are going to change around here. Starting now." And for the first time that day, they smiled. Silence hung in the air long after Brenda had stormed out. Kevin stood there for a moment, his heartbeat steady, his mind processing everything that had just happened. The weight of the moment wasn't lost on him, He had seen the worst of what could happen when bad leadership was left unchecked. He had come in expecting to find cracks in the system, but what he had discovered was something far more dangerous, a culture of fear and silence. But that ended now. Taking a deep breath, he turned to face his employees. Some still looked stunned, while others, like Marcus, wore hesitant but hopeful expressions. "I know this is a lot to take in," Kevin began, his voice even. "I came here today not just as your boss, but as someone who needed to understand what was happening inside this store, inside my company." A murmur rippled through the team, but no one spoke. They were waiting, watching, unsure of what would happen next. "First things first," Kevin continued. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. Brenda is gone. And from now on, this is going to be a place where people are respected." Marcus nodded, stepping forward. I've been here for 2 years," he said hesitantly. "I've seen a lot of people come and go. Good employees. Hard workers. They left because of her." Kevin's jaw tightened. He had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed only fueled his resolve. "What about the complaints?" Kevin asked. "I know people tried to report her. Why didn't anything change?" Marcus sighed. "She had connections. She always said that if we reported her, nothing would happen. And she was right. Every time someone tried, the complaints disappeared. Corporate never followed up." Kevin frowned. That meant someone above her had been covering for her. His company wasn't just dealing with one bad manager, there was a deeper issue at play. He exhaled, composing himself. "I'll handle that. Trust me. No one is untouchable." A sense of relief settled over the team. Shoulders relaxed. Conversations resumed in hushed tones. Then, Jason, the young new hire, hesitated before raising a hand. What happens now? Do we get a new manager?" Kevin nodded. "Yes. But not before I make some much-needed changes. Starting today, we're implementing a direct feedback system. No more complaints getting lost. You'll have a way to report problems straight to me and my executive team." Eyes widened across the room. A few employees exchanged surprised glances. "No one should be scared to come to work," Kevin continued. "If someone like Brenda ever rises up again, they won't last here. I promise you that." Marcus grinned, clapping his hands together. "Man, I never thought I'd see the day. Real change." Kevin offered a small smile. "This isn't just about today. This is about making sure something like this never happens again." And for the first time, the restaurant didn't just feel like a workplace. It felt like a team. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. Kevin had returned to his CEO role, but he didn't disappear back into the safety of his high-rise office. Instead, he spent time visiting different Grayson Bites locations, sitting down with employees, and digging deep into what had gone wrong. What he uncovered shocked him. Brenda had been just the tip of the iceberg. Through anonymous surveys and face-to-face meetings, Kevin learned that multiple locations had suffered under toxic management. The issue wasn't widespread, but it was bad enough to be a problem. And it all came back to accountability. In several locations, store managers had built a culture of fear, just like Brenda had. Employees felt disposable, afraid to speak up. Worse, certain executives had ignored complaints, choosing to protect bad managers rather than do the right thing. Kevin wasn't having it. Within a month, he had personally overseen the firing and replacement of every manager found guilty of mistreatment. He made it clear that Grayson Bites wasn't just a company, it was a reflection of his values, and if someone couldn't uphold them, they had no place here. But he didn't stop at just cleaning house. He restructured the company's HR department, removing the corrupt executives who had buried complaints. He launched an employee-first initiative, ensuring that every worker, from the kitchen staff to the managers, had a direct line to corporate leadership. No more cover-ups. No more silence. The impact was immediate. Morale skyrocketed. Employees who had once dreaded coming to work now felt heard and valued. The turnover rate dropped. Customer satisfaction increased. Grayson Bites had been saved, from the inside out.